Hello everyone. In this video, let's see uh, what is generic network layer. That means how to write a generic network layer and why we have to go for the generic network layer. What is the problem and what is the solution for a network layer. So let's discuss the problem first. But then we will discuss the solution for it. Now, let's say I have just taken a MVVM design pattern where I have a view controller, I have a view model, and in the view model I have two methods. One method is for getting the products data, and another method is getting for the comments. Okay, and I have my service manager which is having two methods, which is products data and which is the comments data. Okay, relatively I have the respective models which are decodable for products as well as for the comments, and as well as for the service error I have divided into URL error, network error, data error, and the parse error. So if you can say it, a typical now for the URL session we need to give the URL request. If there is an URL error, if I cannot convert the URL to an URL request, I'm sending the URL error. If there is something issue with the service, I'm giving the network error. Some issue with the data, I'm giving the data error. In some, if there is some issue with the parse, I'm giving the parse error. So I'm using the decoding process for the serialization, and I'm using the result enum for passing the success and failure. If it is success, I'm passing the respective response. If it is error, I'm passing the respective error. So pretty much this is the problem. Now let's actually discuss what is the problem. Now let me open the service manager in another window, and let's keep them side by side to compare. So what is actually going wrong? For example, this is my products call on the left hand side, and this is my comments call, getting the comments on the right hand side. So what is happening if you compare only, okay, get products data completion, get comments data completion. Here the only the response type, only the response type is different, and the URL is different. Okay, of course URL I can pass it as a parameter, and error get giving the error is same. And when you have the successful response, serialization is same. Of course when you decode, how you decode is different based on the service call. Here it is comments, here it is products. Now you will start thinking of using generics here, correct? You don't need two methods for each and every service call. Why? Because the only thing that is different is the result. Here it is products, here it is comments. Tomorrow if it is some to do, so tomorrow if it is some users list, tomorrow it could be some some codes, some post, anything. All it matters is what is the end product, could be what is the end model, and of course the URL you can pass it as a parameter, correct? Here we'll start thinking about using the generics. We can for example, today it is only two service calls, so it ended up with two methods, get products data and get comments data. What if tomorrow, if it is if there are number of as your app grows, the number of service calls grows, then your service manager and the view model will would get larger. Why? Because if you write in this fashion. So this is the problem statement, and let's go for the solution. So what we can do is, let me close this side window. So what we can do here, so instead of this get products data, what I can use, it's all about get data, correct? For getting the data, all you need is first URL, so that I'll pass the URL. Why? Because you need the URL, sorry. So you need URL. Of course on completion is the same, but only difference is here it will be here it's not this will be generic. And having said that, all we agree that the generic should be decodable, correct? Whatever you are passing, you are assigning to generic, it should be decodable. Why? Because we are doing the decoding operation, correct? Okay, with this said, now I think I can go ahead and copy paste everything in one of the methods, and I can put it here, and instead of giving this, I can give this. Correct? This is my so and so URL. So if okay, here instead of URL I can give the path. I can give the path also, but I just want to go ahead with the URL, so I'll I'll give the URL, or I can pass simply I can pass URL string also. That's also not a problem, so that all the URL conversion everything will be there in the service manager. So we removed one hard coding. Now you have URL string, and on completion you have, now it started giving me error. Why? Because boss, this is not T now it is T dot self. Correct? Why? Because your T is nothing but products. Now instead of products here, what I would do is data. Here I would do is data. That's it. Correct? Now I don't need this. I remove these two methods, get products data and gets comment data. Now my service manager has become generic. Correct? Now I'll just validate it to see whether it is working or fine. I'll go to here also. I don't need this. I'll go ahead, get here. It will become get data. Now I'll use some enum funda, enum data points. I would create a data points dot case products है ना, case comments. For now only this one. Okay, so if it is products, I can give it. So I have this URLs here ready for you, so I can go ahead and give the products. And if it is comments, I'll go and sorry, this is the comment section I'm using. I'll go ahead and give it to it. Okay, so let me put the string here, and here I'll mention it as path, and I'll give it as data points. Now I would say, instead of this, service manager dot, now everything gets changed. Now here, now it is service manager dot get data URL string. I need to pass here. I will say path dot raw value. Why? Because raw value I have given as URL. Just so the same code pretty much goes here. I'll remove this. Why? Because here just I am printing the success and error. Service result, let data I would put it as data. I will put it as data if it is error. Why? Because it's all generic now. Okay, now it is result decodable. Just a second. Service rate, just the service result. Okay, I'll put the same service result, but I would need this piece of code, so I don't need all this, and I would put this. Now it's not data. I'm printing the data. It's not products anymore. Generic, here it's generic parameter T could not be inferred, so it is saying that T could not be products. I need to pass it as product, and if it is, as it is the switch case, I can go with the switch also. Let's write the let's write the switch case. Let's it be path if it is products, and let's write case dot if it is comments for now. Okay, for now let's be with it. We can refactor this also, but yes, okay, yeah. So if it is comments, you do like this, you pass it, but in the result what you get is comments, correct? Now we know it is products data, we'll give it as products. Now we know that it is comments data. Now we mention it as comments and see whether our generic network, let's build it and see whether if it is whether if our generic layer is working or not. Now here I'll first try to fetch so I'll try to fetch products first. Let's run and see what is the output. Why? Because in the view model, so here it is saying there is a parse error. Let's see what is that parse error. So here it is t, and while I'm parsing it, I'm saying t dot self from the data. Maybe it is okay, response data. Let me rename it so that it will not take that particular data. Maybe that is the reason it is failing. Now let me run it again and see what is again parse error. Parse error means it is something, it is failing. Decode, which is decodable, result. Okay, this is fine, and I'm going to the view model. What is happening? URL, I'm passing the path. Result, I'm saying it as product. Okay, the mistake now I did is instead of products I have given it as product, so that is the reason it is giving the parse error. So it is products and it is comments. Why? Because the response we get is products, not the product, multiple products. So now the view model is having passing this generic based on this, but if you can look at the service manager, it's having only a generic layer where you pass the URL and it gives the result based on your decodable generic. Now let's see whether we're getting the data, and okay, I'm getting the data. Now in the view controller, if you can see, I'm passing products. Now it is giving me some list of products. Okay, of course, maybe it is having the generic stuff. We can take it as, we can convert it as the data, we can convert it as comments, and whether it is, we can check whether it is coming as comments and we can print it. These options will go off. Now instead of products I would say I need comments. Now let's see, this should also be working and should be giving the data if ours is a generic network layer. Yes, I'm getting the comments also as there in the browser. Now if you go, I'm getting the comments also. Now if I need to add the to-dos, it's just like a cakewalk. You go and you create the model for it, you go to the view model, you add one more case here and you do the stuff for it. Now this is a way of creating the generic layer. And of course we can refactor this view model code also, we don't need this one. And we can pass using the protocol oriented approach, like instead of service manager, now I can go on protocol. I can give some network layer network layer. It should be following the network layer protocol. Instead of get data, now I can give some fetch or something, fetch t. So now it has to follow this protocol, and if we earn and if it is not only for getting the data, for posting the data also, we can write of course, right, we also do some CRUD operations, not only the getting data. Now this t should be encodable. Why? Because in the post request we send the body, which should be obviously encodable. Of course it will be having the URL string for you, whereas it will be having a body which you need to pass it, correct? This body is nothing but post parameter body, and in the completion and on completion result, it's a data you get, the data that you need to pass. Why? Because what is the model? It's not a model anymore now. and the service error, of course you can pass the service error. Now the same way you can go ahead and write the post data. I'm not going to give any example, but I'm just showing you that post also we can uh, do the stuff, and it's let me quickly write and show how we can do that. For example, the same request we can first the same request we can do. All I need is a request, but it's an URL request I want. Why? Because to the URL request I am going to add the stuff. So first I need to mention the HTTP method here, which is nothing but a string. I need to pass it as post to the URL request. One more important value, if it is post, what we need to add is we add the value where value is this one. We pass it, right? It's not new to us. And what is the header type is we pass the content type, correct? So now what I need to do, here comes the encoding part. Just like we did the decoding while doing the fetch, now I need to add the, if it is encodable only, I can pass the request, which is URL request dot HTTP body. Okay, now here comes, I need to try JSON encoder. Here comes the encoder dot encode, what is the value, body. Okay, as it's a try, I need to end it at catch. Of course the catch I would write the same parser, correct? Parsing is not happening. Why? Because encoding is not happening. Okay, if parsing is successful, if you're able to successfully make the service body all good, then you can go and do the same stuff where let's see, task, we don't need all this. URL session dot share dot data, same, pretty much same. I can write it. Why to waste time? Let me copy paste it. Sorry, it doesn't need, but here I need. So what happens now, if there is an error? So generally we don't need to worry much about the errors. If there is an error, I would take it as if error not equal to nil. At very high level, I'll pass it as was some network error. Else I would pass it as on completion dot success of whatever the data I'm getting here, correct? And I need to start the URL session. Okay, so I think that's how we can request the post. So this has become a very generic network layer for both fetch and for both post. That is what we do. We get the data, we do the post, like any CRUD operations we can do using this generic network layer. You pass the request, service manager has no get data. Okay, here, sorry, let me correct these small errors so that it becomes very generic. Okay, this is how I get the fetch, which is follows this. So any network layer, if it conforms technically, if it conforms to this protocol, this conforms to this protocol, I can say it as boss, you're generic, you're very good, excellent network layer you have. Now I can do whatever I want, correct? And this also technically you don't need to hard code it. You can you can make it you don't need to hard code. You can do this stuff. Instead of URL string, you can pass it as URL request, so that this piece of code goes here. That can be done in the view model, or you can write a middle layer in between a view model and the service manager, saying some you know, like a worker class, you can write it, and that's how technically it goes. Now this is what I wanted to discuss. The problem is, if you have multiple service call, if you write separately in the service layer, the code will become very lengthy, and if you go for generics, that will become very easy. If any service call, if your application is having service manager, any developer should not be touching. What he needs to touch, he need to write the respective model. Now in the view model, you go and add these cases. Correct? If you need this, boss, this you get. If you need this, boss, this you get. Right? This is going to be your response. You got the comments. Now you do whatever you want to do. Correct? So I hope this video is useful. Thank you.